Hello everybody, thank you for coming. It's lovely to see so many of you here this morning. My name is Alex Farber. I'm a media correspondent for The Times, and I'm very happy to be here today, joined by a great panel who I'll introduce in a moment, to discuss creators and TV producers, how to build successful partnerships. So we're going to have a few questions from myself for around 45 minutes or so. And then at the end, I'll be sure to come to you guys for questions. So if you've got anything, do note it down, raise your hand at the end, and I'll try and get through as many questions from the audience as I can. Now, I would like to introduce the panel to you. I will start on the far end with Rick Murray. He is Chief Executive of the production company Workerbee. Next to him on his right is Laura Marks. She is Channel 4 Commissioning Editor of Digital. Then we have George Clarke. He's a content creator. I'm sure many of you will recognise from his successful stint on Strictly Come Dancing last series. And then on my immediate left, we have Mairi Brewis, who is Head of Media Company Partnerships for YouTube. So, what are we trying to achieve today? What we would like to do is to demystify the way in which digital creators can work with broadcasters and traditional production companies to collaborate to help grow audiences, to diversify their income and future-proof themselves, basically. And I think we've got a great team of people who are going to help us understand how to navigate that. And I'm going to come to George, first of all, as the star. Can I call him the star? Sorry, everyone else. He's the most prominent. And the best positioned, I think, to kick us off. George, how would you say what separates a content creator from a traditional piece of TV talent or presenter? How would you characterise those two roles?
I think presenters probably far better at what they do. No, I'm joking. I think the main difference for me is that I have full creative control over not just what I'm doing, but like how it's made. So granted, I may push my work off to an editor now so I can go and do whatever else, but I give them the brief. I'm also sort of like the producer of whatever I want to make, whereas I guess a presenter is more just part of like a bigger team. Mm-hmm. Whereas I guess I'm the head of a team, which is weird to say, but that I feel like would be the main difference, yeah.
Yes, so it's more of a 360 thing. You're coming up with ideas, you're presenting, you're editing, you're producing.
Yeah.
It's that holistic kind of position. When we think about creators, Mairi, how do you see the relationship between people such as George and that role they play and traditional production companies and broadcasters who are trying to get into that space? Is it a collaborative effort? Is there fear of each other? How would you characterise the dynamic between the divide? Is there a divide?
So I would say that historically they've been a little bit different, and now what we're seeing is that they're really coming together. And certainly from where I sit, we see a lot of appetite on both sides to make those connections, to explore what those creative partnerships should be. I think we often hear that there are a few kind of, let's say, teething problems in terms of figuring out the differences. You know, to George's point, sometimes I think people assume that it will work the way that they have always worked on either side, and so there's a little bit of kind of meeting in the middle to figure out how you bring out the best of, you know, a creative world which is more agile, more versatile in terms of the skill set often, versus the traditional world where quite often people have a very specialised role and a very high level of expertise. So bringing those together does mean that there's new exciting opportunities, but it takes a little bit of work to figure out how that model works.
What's driving them coming together? You said that there's a growing appetite for people to collaborate more closely. What's behind that at heart, would you say?
I think it really comes back to the user and the audience. And I think what we're all seeing is that there's this convergence of the world. It used to be that there was TV and there was books and there was newspapers and there were very different media for very different occasions. And now what we have is certainly within YouTube, you have long form, you have short form. It might be brought to you by a broadcaster, it might be brought to you by a content creator, might be brought to you by a newspaper. And there's this kind of real convergence. You can access that content whenever you want. If you want to dive deep into a particular topic, if you want a podcast, if you want a short, it's all there and available. So that kind of explosion of choice and that versatility and that kind of blurring of the boundaries then I think translates into the industry and the ability for individuals to have really quite agile careers that move between different sectors, making different types of content.
And on the other side, from the more professional production company or broadcaster side, how do you consider the?
Well, exactly the same, really, because with the growth of audience on platforms like YouTube, that's an amazing opportunity for those production companies and broadcasters to lean into that space and to be able to kind of connect with audiences with those new types of formats that they're interested in.
And you mentioned sort of teething troubles. What are some of the common pitfalls that you've seen, and perhaps what are some of the better examples that you've come across? Because obviously you've got good perspective on the range of partnerships that occur on the platform.
Well, I'd say there isn't a one-size-fits-all model. So I think, the examples that we have from George, there's one thing which is sort of how a creator might be featured in something that goes out on air on TV. You might have other models where, for example, you have things like the Sidemen, which are looking at deals with broadcasters and streamers alongside their work on YouTube. But you might also have things like, potentially George might choose to collaborate with a broadcaster or another organisation on YouTube to stream something together. From Channel 4, I imagine Laura might talk about this later, you have development of new formats, which is sort of taking that expertise from Channel 4 and then working with creators to build those and make those into new things. So I think that's the first thing. There's no kind of single way of doing it, which is quite exciting. And in terms of where it works well, I think it's probably about having a really good match about what both sides want to get out of it. So is it revenue? Is it about growing audiences, attracting new audiences either in a new market or a new demographic? Is it about kind of expanding your brand generally so that you can tap into new revenue streams in the future or something like that? So there's lots of different ways it can serve.
And Rick, let's come to you. You're a traditional production company, very much in the TV world. How do you see the opportunity, and what's behind your ambition to, if indeed you have one, to partner and work more with creators? How do you see the opportunity, and what's behind that?
I think it's about, for a TV company, everybody here knows that TV's a little bit in trouble. If you look at the ad spend that has traditionally paid for, most of TV output, it's moved online, it's moved to social video, and a lot of it's in YouTube now, and it's shrunk on TV. So there's a couple of reasons why the opportunity is really exciting for us. Obviously, creatively, it's exciting to do something different and to work with creators and let the creators lead the creative process. So that's different, and for us, an evolution in how we work. But if you think of it on pure commercial terms, and because we're based up in Manchester, I find sometimes that we sort of feel this more than companies in London where there's a bigger freelance market. But we used to have really good pathways within a TV production company for young people to get into long form content, as you might call it now, and grow and learn and build up their career and their portfolio. But now we're sort of missing those sort of multiple episode, middle of the market, kind of returning projects, like they've dropped out of the market. And so when you look at it from just a pure opportunistic point of view, it's like, well, how are we going to build a company that's got a mix of things on the slate, and what does that new middle, which brings in new audiences and can provide a career pathway up to big premium shows, what does that look like? And I think the answer is it's what George is doing. And so we as traditional TV companies need to see that grow and thrive on our slate. And then it's a case of, well, what does that look like for us, and what can we bring to the party? And that's the process we're going through at the moment.
But those sort of nursery slope shows, if you like, those high volume, low budget programs traditionally would have been funded by a broadcaster. But, YouTube's not funding those kinds of opportunities. George isn't funding those kinds of opportunities. So how do you justify it? You're not a charity. You can't be there purely spending money to invest in your future.
That's the terrifying bit. Okay. Well, because and that's probably why it's taken a while for traditional TV companies to sort of go, hold on a second, we need to pivot here, because it's from going from the safety of this is being paid for by a broadcaster to taking a risk with our own money. I mean, obviously the benefit is that YouTube needn't cost the earth, right? It doesn't need the same budgets as TV. And if you work with a great creator like George, who kind of like, it's amazing the metrics that you can create great content on that drives a big audience and builds a community. It's totally different metrics to TV. And it's about authenticity rather than, just quality of shots or music, or commercial music or archive, whatever. It's about that authentic voice. So we have to change the way we work, but we do have to put our money where our mouth is as well and take those risks. But what I would say is, I take solace in the fact that we know audiences and we know how to create hits, and we've done that in the broadcast world with an ever shrinking audience. So moving into, I say to my team all the time, there are still massive audiences for things. It's just they're not always coming to TV apart from those big noisy moments. So going out there into YouTube to find bigger audiences for things is super exciting, but it's scary too financially.
And there is money. I mean, Laura, you've got a healthy budget with regards social commissioning videos, content for social. How do you see your role in this relationship, and what's the benefit to Channel 4 of partnering with the likes of George?
Yeah, in January I became the head of digital commissioning at Channel 4, and what I really realised, creators are not scary. I think it's really important to remember that people talk about creators and talent and YouTube as if it's this kind of unattainable, scary thing. George is really nice, like really easy to work with. And I think for Channel 4, that is part of our DNA as well, is about taking risks, working with new people, building new talent, building ecosystems, finding new audiences. And what we do with Channel 4, especially on Channel 4.0, is that it is a really well-curated, thought-out YouTube channel that at its heart is really building up and bringing to our audience the careers of creators within our formats. And that is something that we're very lucky that we've got to that point with the channel. And we make formats on that channel that are standout formats on their own that creators luckily, thankfully, want to come and work with us on. And George was in one of our shows, Hear Me Out, and I was talking to you about it earlier, and you had a great time. And I think we need to remember that creators don't just, a lot of them do, they want to be in their own YouTube ecosystem, but they also want to have careers like any other TV presenter or any comedian. You have comedians that go on to panel shows on TV. They don't necessarily need to do that, but they do it for their brand. They do it for selling tickets to their live shows. George went on Strictly. That will bring you a new audience. We have PK Humble, for example, went on Celebs Go Dating. He is one of our 4.0 talent. We have Nella Rose, who went on Bake Off. And I think just the world of it all, I sort of hate the term 360 because it feels like we've been saying that forever, but it's very true. There are places where everybody can live and everybody can make content depending on who the audience is. George's audience will be different than the 4.0 audience, but some of his audience probably really enjoyed seeing him on Hear Me Out, and that's another string to George's bow where he can then bring in and other people see him on that show and go, oh, I never really knew who that George Clarke cool guy was. I'm going to go to his channel now. So there's so many reasons why, and I don't think we should speak of it as this kind of them and us, and it's just a new kind of, it's not even new, it's just the ecosystem of where audiences are now and where young audiences are and where creators are wanting to play. And everybody's finding their feet with it. But, people like to say, hey, Mum, I was on Channel 4, still,
Is that fair, John? I mean, you've got millions and millions of subscribers, probably more than Channel 4. I mean, do you need them? I mean, do you see a benefit from a partnership such as Hear Me Out? Do you see benefit from going on Strictly Come Dancing? I mean, is that something that appeals to you? Or
100%. I think.
And is it all about just growing reach and awareness, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I think there's obviously the more views I get, the more money I get. The more, but it's just a sign of, for me, people viewing my content and stuff it's what drives me, because the comments come in saying, oh, I really liked that video. I thought that's brilliant because I loved making it. And it's the more people that see that, the more people that can feel that way. And that's kind of what makes me want to make videos. So going out and doing things like 4.0 and Strictly, that sort of builds an audience where it's like, oh, I can give that to more people, and it builds a nice community. And I feel like what I like so much about it is because, I think you mentioned it, authenticity was a really nice word. That's why I feel like sets a content creator apart, is they know that what you're making, you decided to make it. Whatever comes up in that video, that was your choice. So it feels like you can buy into that person through what they're making much more than maybe you could, say, a presenter, because they're being told maybe to say that. This is everything I've said or done online is me, and I feel like that's what people kind of buy into.
But there's a degree of what's the word, conflict there, isn't there? Because I mean, you're not in control of Strictly.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily in control of the Hear Me Out format. So, and I think Rick mentioned, the fact that traditionally creators are at the heart of the creative process, but you're not always. So how do you navigate that? How is, not, because you don't want to erode your authenticity.
Yeah.
So is that a course? Is that a course? I think so. Is that something you consider going into relationships? Is that something you've ever been bitten by, as it were?
100%. I think on Strictly, that was one of the things that, in terms of the VT aspects, was one of the things that I was always trying to make sure I stayed on top of. Where when I was being asked a question, if it felt more of like a leading one, I'd sort of be like, I don't think I would say that originally. And they'd be like, okay, well, maybe we'll work around that. And I feel like that's kind of why I enjoyed the experience, because it didn't feel like I was being told to say something. And I felt like, because I had the background of knowing that I'm able to say or do what I want, and it's got me to a certain position, that I feel like I'm able to do that on this platform as well, and it not be like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that.
So you felt confident?
Yeah, I feel like by, I guess, building my brand, being me, I felt like I was able to have the confidence to still just be me and sort of be like, no, I don't think I would say that, and sort of pivot more. And I feel like 4.0 is very good with that.
We are so conscious of that. The whole point is that creators get to be themselves and talent get to be themselves, and we just harness that energy and give them the tools to do something that might be a bit more premium or might be a bit more risky, and we can give them the support in doing that. And we put, you put different creators together. Some creators might not work well with others, but that's just, again, that's just casting, and that's how TV works as well. And I think that's just really, really important, that creators are able to be themselves in our content, and that's.
But Rick, come on, there's nothing worse than loads of people thinking they know what's best when you're trying to make a show, is there?
No, but
It's that hard. I mean, obviously, like producers, we're used to being control freaks, aren't we? And telling the person on the other side of the camera exactly how this is going to work. But what I would say is, from our experience of working with creators, and we did the Molly May series for Amazon, is just like you, George. She's not just talent. She knows her audience and exactly what they come to her for, and she knows it way better than we do. So if we're like, hey Molly, we've got this great idea, why do we go and shoot this or shoot it? That's absolutely not there.
But you know what they also know? They know, and George will testify to this, when to post on social.
Yes.
And when it's the best time to do a Snapchat, or what time they should put something out on YouTube. And that is extraordinary that we have that data now. That didn't exist before.
And for us, it's about letting go. It's about. And look, when we're working for a broadcaster, we work with a commissioning team who they know their audience. So it's just that sort of data and that feedback is coming from a different place. It's not coming from up top. It's actually coming from the other side of the camera. So for us, it's a switch, but it's a switch we need to embrace.
It's a good problem to have, though, isn't it? At the end of the day, got more insights, more expertise in the room.
Yeah. And Mairi, Rick mentioned the talent issue that television's having with the talent pipeline. I mean, I'm conscious that YouTube has got partnerships with the NFTS, I think, as part of the BBC scheme, and you're also talking to government about calling for a sort of, formalising the role of creators. I mean, what's your goal? What would you like to see happen? And where do you see, from a more holistic view, all of this going? And how do you see it helping the content creating community as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a consultation just over a year ago, which was a large-scale survey across the UK of creators. We had over 10,000 responses. And what it showed us was, first of all, it confirmed our suspicions that the creator economy is really large. So there are 15,000 people who employ someone else working on their YouTube channel, 45,000 employed working in the creative economy overall. Digital creator economy. But it also exposed that there are a lot of challenges for those people in those lines of work because there isn't the same sort of formal recognition, there isn't the same kind of structural infrastructure around it. So an example is, I think 17% of those respondents felt that they had the right skills and support to be able to develop their career. And there are all sorts of little things like, for example, there not being a tax code if you're a creator. So that is one very exciting development, which just in the last couple of weeks, we've been able to help unlock with the government. So there now is a tax code that means that they can literally sort of put on their form what it is that they do for a job, and that profession is recognised.
And what's the impact? Just to be clear, what does that what does that mean in real terms, or what does that represent in broader terms?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things in there. I think one is the friction point to get your job done, to manage your finances, to apply for a loan or whatever else, trying to solve those. There's another one which is about, I guess, kind of professional recognition in the sense of appreciation for the talent and the skills and the excellence that creators represent, which I think we're seeing that increasing day over day. And then the third one is about access to training, which, if I can talk about that for a minute, you mentioned the program that we're doing with NFTS. I think some of the NFTS cohort are here today. Shout out to NFTS. Alongside the BBC, YouTube and the BBC are partnering with NFTS to run a training program across the length and the breadth of the UK. So we have 150 spots across kids, news, and digital content creation. And the aim is that that's a course that really equips people who are mid-career, whether they're from a kind of more traditional TV background or from a digital content creation background, to hone their skills on making digital videos. And we're really excited about it because it's across the UK, so super accessible and really kind of taps into the talent that we have across the whole country. We're really excited about partnering with both the BBC and the NFTS on it because we think it's an amazing bringing together of what those three organisations each have to offer, and hopefully will be just an amazing resource for those 150 individuals.
So it sounds like, the industry is sort of maturing, is sort of professionalising. George, talk to us a little bit about what your business looks like. I think you just talked about people employing. Do you have any employees? Do you see yourself becoming a sort of mini studio or a studio? Do you need to partner with a Workerbee, in the next 2, 3, 5 years? Or can you just be going straight to Laura, and producing this kind of stuff yourself?
No, he needs to partner with me.
Well, he's got a tax code now.
I'm joking.
I think, I don't currently have any employees. I know a lot of my friends in the same space do. They've my housemate, a guy called Chris, he's got, I think, 10 people working under him now. I know a lot of people know the Fellas as a podcast group. Before getting picked up by Global, they've built a huge team. So it's definitely something that you can obviously do, and I'm looking to do in the future. I work sort of just on a freelance basis at the moment with editors and a producer. But I feel like that being that ability to employ someone being easier with, so we were speaking about tax codes and everything, that's very nice news, especially with things like rent and everything, sort of trying to be like to a tenant. I landlord, sorry, I promise I can live here.
And that was one of the other pain points. It was literally, I want to apply for a mortgage. What do I put in the bank form about what my profession is? Like little things like that, which are actually incredibly impactful for how you run your life. Yeah,
so that's good news for me. I'm glad I came today. But yeah, definitely, I'd love to build a team. To me, that is one of the main goals, is because I can build a team. I have someone I can work with. Maybe I'll get an office space. This is something that all my friends who have been doing this for far longer than I have and are far more successful than I have been doing. I can then work with someone on like a person-to-person basis and make these videos that I want to make bigger and better. And that's kind of the goal for me, because, I mean, getting into it, I first and foremost, I'm a viewer of YouTube videos. I mean, every time I got back from school when I was a kid, just get my little iPad mini out and scroll YouTube. It's all I ever did. So this is like the dream job for me, and I kind of just love making the videos. So getting a team together and making, I guess, my own sort of production company, you could call it, is lovely. But then working with bigger production companies, obviously having the budget and the sort of know-how that I wouldn't have is also something that I feel like is very attractive to me in terms of making those video concepts earlier than I would be able to now.
That's where it can get really interesting, right? Because we're trying to plug gaps in our slate and fund our development teams to get big formats or big projects away, and we need constant work to do that. But at the same time, as a traditional company, we've got infrastructure, and you guys are saying, wouldn't it be great to have more infrastructure to play with and to be able to sort of boost our, what we do and replicate it with other creators? And I think that's where the two, sort of the divide can be crossed between the two ways of doing business in really interesting ways.
Laura, talk to me about the extent to which the idea of working with a digital-first organisation such as George or George's friends operate can differ from working with a perhaps more traditional established television production company, and the extent to which those guys understand really what's required to make compelling, digital social-first content.
Yeah, I think the beauty of it is that the creators themselves have started to forge really good relationships with the production community. There's one there that's just happened. And
that was my pitch.
Yeah, well, of course. And then come and pitch me the show next week.
Yeah,
we'll do it. You're on. So I think that's the thing. We don't, still at Channel 4, we don't commission individuals necessarily. We have creators that might come to us with an idea, or production companies who are smaller that might come to us with an idea. And I think what we have to do is just assess, okay, what is the kind of ambition of the idea? Who's the talent? What's the timeline? What's the budget? What are the legal complexities? Are there any? And then we go, okay, we might partner you with a production company, or we might give this smaller production company their first shot, but we might get a mentor from another production company. And we are doing that more and more, actually. So for instance, if George came to me tomorrow with a 4.0 idea, and he would say, really honestly, I am not a production company, I would say, okay, actually, why don't you work with Workerbee, or why don't you work with After Party Studios, or why don't you work with Fox and Leeds, or any of these kind of new digital companies, because they exist all over the UK. They might be smaller, but they have real digital kind of expertise in editing and in look and feel and pace and all those kind of things. So I think that's the thing, is just making sure that creators or any talent are paired with the right production company. And it's not just in the entertainment space. We have a really good track record in brilliant factual mini docs. We did a really excellent documentary with a presenter, talent journalist called Michael K last year, and he's based out in the Middle East and Thailand and like all these places. He travels the world, and we were lucky enough he was in the UK, and I really wanted him to make this documentary about car crash gangs. And he was just like, I make my own videos, but there was so much legal compliance and complexity with that we just partnered him with a production company and made it, and it's one of the most successful videos we've done in that space. So it doesn't just need to be content creators who are in the entertainment space. There are journalists, there are comedians, there are podcasters, there are all these plethora of talent out there. And I think the word creator doesn't necessarily define pranking videos on YouTube.
But you were also talking before just about how traditional guys can sometimes not quite grasp what's required. So tell us about that.
I think
from the other side.
Yeah. So if we're pitched an idea by a producer, sometimes it can be really obvious that they maybe don't quite have a grasp entirely of what is expected on YouTube, for instance. My team commissioned for YouTube predominantly in the brand and entertainment space and in the entertainment, factual and comedy space. So if we get a pitch in, sometimes it's very obvious when it comes in and it just is just like an old telly idea that they think they can just get commissioned, or it might be cheaper telly, is the phrase that makes me twitch. But what we look for is, does that production company, have they sent in the pitch with a thumbnail example, for instance? Instantly you go, okay, they probably know what they're talking about. Or a really good SEO title. The number of shows I've commissioned just because of the title without any deck, you would be amazed. Just because they go, this is what the show is called. And I go, well, let's make that sounds great. But that's how the viewer goes onto YouTube, and that's what they see, and that's what they click on, and that is the image. So if you can send a deck in or a pitch, that the front page, the YouTube title, a thumbnail, and some description of what it is, and you think, I would 100% click on that, you're literally 75% there, I promise you. That can be how it works.
I think to pick up on the point that Rick was making earlier, there's something about then what the process is to develop the content from there. Unlike traditional television where you don't have any of the risk in some ways financially, but on the other hand, you have to know exactly what the idea is. It's got to be fully formed. You're going to commission it all, you're going to edit it all, and then put it out into the world, and then you're done. It's the opposite on YouTube. On YouTube, you try something. You might try it in a low-cost way, and then you'll see how it does. You might re-edit that episode. You might pivot the idea. You might test the thumbnails as well. So that just changes the whole dynamic of how you're working and where the kind of profile of risk and change comes in.
And we likened it earlier. If I was suddenly going to pitch a movie, I don't know anything about making movies, so I wouldn't expect, Warner Brothers to give me a movie deal, or a big studio, or Disney to suddenly give me a movie, because it's not my thing. I don't know about it. So I think that's one thing I would encourage, is just kind of really consume, but in the genres that you enjoy. YouTube is massive and digital is massive, and I joked before, it doesn't have to be prank videos, but it really doesn't. There's such niches on YouTube. There's history, there's car mechanics who are making millions of pounds because they're just have really good how-to videos. There's so much stuff out there. So don't just think that there's only one way to YouTube. There's many ways to do it as well.
And that's what I was saying about what we can bring to it. I think we as production companies need to work out what we can bring, and that might be working with talent. It doesn't have to just be young audiences either. No. It's audiences of all ages, it's all genres. And one thing that I'm working on with Banijay as a whole at the moment is our sort of collective pivot into sport. We do lots of sports TV, but we've focused in on digital as the way that if we as a company are going to pivot more into sport, then YouTube is actually the way to do it, because you can already see all sort of sports talk moving to YouTube, all that sort of content that surrounds sport. And I think for us, it's interesting, the thing about risk is because we're taking risk all the time, spending money on development. And it could take us, development team 2 years to develop a show that eventually gets commissioned. And we're spending all that money at the front end all the time. And the ability to sort of become fluent in this way of investing in a product, like any other business in the world actually, investing in a product up front and putting it out and testing it on the market and tweaking it until it's perfect, that's actually a really exciting opportunity for us if we embrace this language and we don't just stick TV shows on YouTube, because we're doomed for failure if we just do that.
Yeah, George, tell us, you were talking before about your kind of iterative development. You've come up with ideas for sort of formats that you've launched. Talk to us about that process and how you've iterated.
Yeah, I think
from some of your traditional videos, which are more skits to cameras.
Yeah, I think you touched on it really well, actually. I think the whole sort of thumbnail and title idea, it sounds very sort of up in the air and like it's difficult to understand, but that is the sort of driving force on how somebody watches a video on YouTube, whereas maybe in traditional media you might see in the ad break a little trailer come up for a show that's coming up, or you'll see it all over the place. The only place that you're going to find out what's inside a video on YouTube is if you click on it. And that's why the thumbnail and the title is so important. And I know a lot of people, myself included, I'm trying to do this more, is even if I come up with an unbelievable idea, or what I think is an unbelievable idea, I won't sort of put it into action unless I know how it's going to be framed. I know what the thumbnail is going to look like. I know what the title is going to be. And if I know people would actively click on it, because otherwise I put so much effort into something that may fall quite flat in sort of relative terms, just because you're scrolling through, there's millions of videos on YouTube. Why would I click on that one? That's what you've kind of got to think. But so that's sort of the initial step is, why would someone click on this video? And then I know a lot of people just think of a title first, but they say, okay, how would I make that into a video? And you sort of backtrack that way, which feels like a weird sort of thought process. But then I felt like that is just the key point, and you work from there.
I mean, that must be what Mr. Beast does. Like, think of the titles. 50 million identical twins battle it out for £5 million. And you're like, let's make that, you know? that
Clickbait.
Yeah, but it's like, but the thumbnail better deliver on that. And then the first 30 seconds, you better have 50 million identical twins in the first 30 seconds, or else you're not clicking on it. But
that's absolutely true. And the algorithm will punish you if that's the case, because if people click on it and then if everybody then clicks back out again, that's not going to work. So we do not recommend a clickbait strategy.
That's another good point, is the whole retention of it all as well, because there are so many other videos. Just getting someone to click on that's just like the first hurdle. The second hurdle is making sure that you are enjoying it from the get-go to the end, because as soon as there's a lull, you're like, today's day and age, people click off that video and they go, there's thousands of other out there, I'll just click on that one instead. And that's kind of what you've got to do, try and keep people around. So I guess it's a slightly different way of producing a video than it would be in traditional media. But
do you use the analytics? Do you look at there are little graphs you can get within YouTube Analytics that shows you where the drop-off is? So you can see, 100% start, and then if there are particular moments where you're losing audience or something like that. Do you ever use that to kind of recut videos and so on?
Do you go back and re-edit videos based on analytics?
So I whenever I film a video, I give like a sort of long brief to an editor. We go back and forth with like various rounds of amends, but what I will always spend, once I've had sort of maybe like the third or fourth draft back, I'll always spend like 3 or 4 hours on it myself, going through, cutting out just the tiniest bits of like pause. So I just go, okay, that bit goes out, it's not even needed out. And I usually get in a video back about 45 minutes, cut it down to about 30. And because then I'm happy that there's no point in the video where, because if I'm getting bored at my own video, there's no chance someone who has no real investment in it is actually going to stick around. So I feel like that's sort of something that I try and focus on. And looking at the analytics and seeing average viewer retention, if that just keeps going up, I'm happy. That's sort of like my main thing is, okay, that's like a real tell of if they're enjoying the video. So obviously you're not going to click off of the video that you're enjoying. So
those things are really important for page growth and reach and subscribers. Otherwise the algorithm, as Mairi says, punishes you, and your videos, no matter how brilliant your thumbnail is, if YouTube knows that this page is well known for people just clicking off every video, even if you then put out the best thumbnail, the best title, and it has potential for really good retention, it's not going to surface as well, and it takes a while then to break out of that glass ceiling, as I always call it to my team. Like, you've got to, how can you get in that elevator and not just kind of circle at the top but break out again? It can be really difficult.
See, I think, why wouldn't we want to be involved in kind of this level of understanding the audience as a TV producer? Because we're used to going for a meeting at a broadcaster and talking to a human about how they understand the audience to be. And some data comes into it, but not this level. I think the discipline of thinking, because it's all in a world of choice now. Gone are the days when you would just put the telly on at 6 p.m. and then just see what happened for the rest of the evening. And if something didn't have a great title but sort of had some interesting characters in it, you'd give it a go because it's on and you can't be bothered reaching for the remote. It's just completely changed, hasn't it? We're in total control whether you're watching Netflix or Amazon. So this is all great discipline for a TV producer anyway, even though the attention spans, I would argue, are slightly better on Netflix, Amazon, iPlayer, because at least they're in lean back mode and you're not accompanied by another 100 thumbnails that you can click on at the same time as watching it,
But time is also so precious, isn't it? Yourself, You're on Apple or Amazon or Netflix or for streaming, and you see a plethora of thumbnails, you're like, right, I've got this is my evening. I have an hour. I'm gonna pick something. You're quite led, if you don't know what you want to watch and you're just going to go for anything, you're quite led by even that thumbnail of what to choose.
I'm going to ask one more question and then I'm going to throw it to the audience. So do prep your questions if you've got them. What I was going to say was, taking a step back, it feels like we're talking about this as if it's almost a new opportunity, but this has been going on for a long time. I feel like I've been writing about YouTube and digital video for, the best part of probably more than a decade. To what extent is this really becoming a meaningful business opportunity and a professional industry? And what's driving that? Or is it always destined to become a relatively small budget, slightly siloed individuals, which is a perfectly good but not really scalable business? I mean, is this becoming something meaningful? And why are we still talking about it a little bit like it's new when it's not new? Mairi, I think I'd ask that to you.
Yeah.
Is that a fair question? Maybe you disagree with the premise.
So I think you're right. This is something that's been building over a long period of time. I think what's happened probably in the last year or two is perhaps two things. Firstly, I think from the audience point of view, as more and more YouTube viewing has happened on the TV, connected TVs have got better. The friction to start watching YouTube on your connected TV has decreased. Then that has meant that there's been a kind of greater convergence in terms of how our audience see those different content areas. And then I would say, I think that has then translated into a bit more industry recognition. And, at Channel 4 of our partners were obviously the earliest to lean into YouTube 2 years ago. But we, now all three major broadcasters in the UK have YouTube as a central part of their strategy. And I think that therefore changes not just what they're doing, but how the industry as a whole perceives YouTube in the UK. Remind me of the second bit of your question.
I was just want to add, so this is becoming a business opportunity for professional companies like Rick, to move into beyond talent.
Yeah.
Helping out.
Yeah.
Rather than just individuals, making cool videos that go viral and then.
Yeah. So what I would say, I slightly disagree with the point about smaller attention spans. I think, if anything, we see greater engagement. So if you think about, for example, some of the podcasts, some of the watch time, certainly we see on YouTube in terms of connected TVs, people are watching in many cases for longer. They're going deeper into topics that really interest and engage them. So I don't think that this is something that is kind of marginal. I think that's kind of really core. It's a way that people find real kind of connection. That also comes back to the point about authenticity as well, that people really do have a depth of connection and engagement with the content that they're finding. I think it's also true, though, that there are big pieces, and maybe you want to talk about Sidemen, but I mean, phenomenal, the football match that was just over a week ago, which sold out Wembley in record time, and to have that number of people turning up in person to engage with the creators that they love. No offence, because I'm sure you were brilliant, but I heard that the standard of football was not generally that high. I'm sure you were the outlier.
I heard you got very publicly nutmegged, George.
Yeah, thanks for that. I heard it's someone else. So.
But I think that's sort of testament to, both that there are these moments that can bring very large audiences together, but combining that then with the depth of connection. But hand you the ball on the positive note there.
If you saw on the football pitch, don't hand me the ball. I think what you said is very true, that obviously podcasting is huge on YouTube now as well. And I feel like maybe in terms of me going through, taking these tiny little bits out, that's more for my style of videos. But I think something that everybody here has said is there is so many different styles of videos and styles of content creator. And I feel like that's something that maybe is what people are in traditional media are realizing more. I mean, you look at casting for any sort of TV show, I don't think in any, apart from, I think I saw on the Celeb Apprentice, they had 2 content creators. I don't think there's ever been more than 1 content creator. And if you were to sort of look at those shows and say, okay, how many sports personalities are there? How many presenters are there? There'll be 3, 4, 5. And I think content creation is sort of spans that similar sort of scope in terms of seeing, say, me on Strictly and being like, okay, that's content creators ticked off. Seems like maybe you haven't opened your eyes to how big content creation is, because I'm maybe this segment, but then you get someone like who they had a few years beforehand, Saffron Barker. I imagine our audiences wouldn't really clash at all, and you could have 2 content creators on, and that would span a much larger sort of space, if you know what I mean.
And it goes both ways, of course, because a lot of the guys, the traditional celebrities, are big YouTube or social profiles.
Can I answer your point about it being scalable?
Yeah.
I think it's what both of you are touching on, which is that the longevity of building an audience that's loyal. I agree with you on the attention span thing, because actually when you find when you build a community and it's super loyal and it loves that content, it will watch hours and hours and hours of it. And I know the Sidemen will put out 3-hour cuts of their shows, and people will watch all 3 hours of it. So you do get that payback, and I think that's what's interesting for us, is that we're in, like, TV is becoming so disposable. We develop all this IP and we give it a go, and unless it's a unicorn like Traitors or something like that, we might get 1 or 2 seasons out of an idea, and all that work is down the drain. But on YouTube, you can build something sustainable. And if we can do that at scale as production companies, then that's where it's really interesting.
Great, thank you guys. Question, did anyone have a question they'd like? Oh goodness me, a lot of hands. I think this guy with the glasses at the front was first up, but yes, this chap here with the green jacket. If you just wait, that's behind you, sorry. If you just wait for the microphone, if you could tell us your name and where you're from, please, first.
My name's Richard Max. I'm from Film Tank, Berlin. We're a traditional documentary company. We have a non-profit sister company that makes XR, VR and 360. We're trying to find synergy with those kind of projects and look into the digital space. This is a question really for Laura, actually. I was thinking about traditional or legacy media in the digital space, working with someone like George. Can you just give us a bit of an insight into the commissioning process and how sort of the commissioners work to put the product out? Because obviously we have a old way of working where we get notes from you guys and we fix them and then we put it out. And how does that change when you're putting something up which is there potentially forever, but you might want to revisit it based on the metrics?
Yes. So we have, there's a sort of mix. We are still Channel 4, we are broadcasters. So I get given a budget every year for 4.0, for all our other propositions, all the rest of it. And we will work as a team to come up with, quite traditionally actually, in terms of just the initial mechanics, a brief of what we want on that channel. So we look at what's worked really well for us, and we look at what we want the direction of travel to go. For instance, I don't think it will become a surprise, we're more female creators in this space. So I might say to the team, right, we want to do a brief, and we want a new show with female creators or on these sorts of topics, because it's something that we know the audience have liked. They've shown that they like us, like it through, social clips and reactions and comments and all these kind of things. And we will put that brief to production companies and talent, and they'll come to us quite traditionally actually and pitch their shows. But the way that we do it is we're sort of more involved, because the team are very YouTube native. They really understand the audience. They really understand the creators. Kayo on my team, who leads Channel 4.0, you could say a show to him and he'll go, this talent, this talent, this talent, and this talent, they should be in it. And they really understand that. And I guess it is just about putting a brief out and wanting your products to come back and buy them. It kind of is quite traditional like that. But we like to sort of always be open for business, always be open to hearing about ideas. And then we'll work with those producers. They'll send us their first cut. We will do notes with them, but it's very involved. It's all the things like thumbnails and titling and what are the social clips going to be. And when we're thinking about the show, what could be really good on TikTok? What could be really good on Instagram? What would work on the creator's own platform? What could we collab with? It sounds quite exhausting, doesn't it? It's like a lot. It's quite a lot to think about. I don't know how you do it, honestly. So that we do all of that, and we think about the channel and the audience first. So what would work on 4.0? The number of documentaries people pitch me for 4.0, and like, we don't do docs on 4.0. So it's look at the channel, understand the channel, think about the audience. We have other places where we can do all that sort of stuff. So absolutely. If you're a docs company, if you own the rights, get them on YouTube.
Right, next. Anyone else? Yes, the lady. Sorry, I can't see the blonde lady behind you. Thank you, Ali. Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Esther. I'm from near Liverpool, but I live here now. I work for Mercury Studios, which is a division of Universal Music Group. So we're like literally 10 steps away from here. So if anybody from RTS is listening, please have some more events here because it's so convenient for me to get to. But I had a question, anyone can answer it really, about audience retention. I would say that when creators like George go on something like Strictly, I would argue that they're kind of an anomaly and they're being exposed, for lack of a better word, to like new audiences for the first time. And then when they're on things like Hear Me Out, they're sort of not an anomaly anymore, and they're surrounded by people with similar digital audiences and similar sized fan bases. So I would say when you're commissioning them for things like that, are you considering retaining any of those audiences that got to know George for the first time through formats like Strictly, or are you just sort of accepting that maybe it will be more young people and you'll be retaining more of his original fan base? And yeah, how do you sort of consider that? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we will have talent on the shows that we think will resonate with the 4.0 audience. So you're exactly right. Do they play in the same circles? Do they have similar followings? Are they in that sort of youth culture space, etc.? But I don't think what we're trying to do, because you can't, there's a sort of argument around cannibalization. We're not sort of going, we want all of George's audience to watch this stuff and keep them forever. Some of them might come if we collab with George, and some of them might not like it, and some of them will just might stay with 4.0 and they discover something new. I think it's always about discovering a new program or a new product. So I think those things can just happen naturally, and it's one big ecosystem in this kind of creator space, and we're lucky Channel 4 gets to play in that space. So I don't know. And when you did Strictly, did you see your audience increase, your subscribers increase? Was there a peak moment for you for that?
Yeah, no, I definitely saw an increase in sort of, I guess, across the board in all my socials. Looking to the analytics, the age range of that was a little bit different to my usual analytics. But
Has that changed since over time? Has it dropped again, or is it?
I think it's not really changed the whole sort of look at the demographic of the people that tend to watch me. But I feel like, weirdly, maybe people that were aware of who I was on YouTube just through doing collabs with people like the Sidemen or whoever it is on YouTube, I think they may have taken me more seriously because they were like, oh, he was on Strictly, maybe I will check him out. So it's a weird one because I feel like I definitely got a new audience, but I feel like across the sort of YouTube space and in the online world, maybe I seemed more of a reputable person to then be like, oh, maybe I will go and follow them and check them out and watch his videos and stuff.
Okay, another question. Yes, there's a lady here at the front. Thank you. Wait, can you just wait for the mic and let us know who you are, please? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mairi Mullen. I teach TV at University of Greenwich. It's a question for Marie and the NFTS students. What has the project work that you've been doing together with the BBC shown you about the skills pipeline for the future?
So our students here today are not actually on that program. They're on a different program that we're working with at the NFTS. So maybe I'll let them
answer that question, or Anna, if you want to speak to it.
Well, tell us about what you see, why you decided to do this. What's the shortage that you recognise, and what you hope that graduates will get from it? Where are we lacking?
Yeah.
What needs to change?
The shortage that we identified was that there was no systematic offering of training in this space, and so we saw that as something that we could help with. In particular by working with the BBC, and because we're looking at kids content and news as well as general digital content, we really wanted to bring that expertise that the BBC brings in things like news gathering, the quality of their content, some of those sort of real kind of core skills that have been passed down now through generations of fantastic TV content creators, and pair that with some of the things we've been talking about on the panel today in terms of tapping into how audiences are consuming content digitally nowadays, and the adjustments to approaches that you need to make. So that was what we thought would be really powerful about this programme, the bringing together of those two elements. And in particular, that's why we wanted to have a mixed cohort of creators and people from a kind of more traditional TV background, so that people could learn from each other. So it was creating that environment and getting that kind of fusion, as it were.
Okay. The chap here in the white T-shirt, been patient.
Hello, hi, I'm Dean. I used to be a television producer in entertainment and am now embracing digital. What I love about what you said is that YouTube really does sound like it is the great leveler. You've got content creators and they are coming up essentially next to big broadcasters like Channel 4. But as Rick, you alluded to earlier, there's a lot of kind of financial outlay that you have to put in. A lot of people from television are now looking to move into the world of kind of YouTube and digital. And I just wanted to get a sense from you guys whether you thought, A, that's the move that everybody should be making. And then also for people who might be a little bit kind of anxious of going into this kind of big ocean of YouTube content alongside broadcasters and established content creators, what their kind of initial steps to get into that world should be.
And Rick, do you want to talk about whether that's...
Yeah.
And then George could pick up maybe.
Yeah, because you sit on panels and we talk a lot about freelancers pivoting like you from TV into digital. And I think the bit where we need to catch up as production companies is we need to pivot. And when we pivot and start seeing it as not necessarily a departure, but a mixed economy of making great content, and we redefine what we do as companies, then it's going to be much easier for you guys. It's not going to be like, I'm waving goodbye to my TV career and I'm going to go and have a YouTube one. Actually, these two things can live side by side. And we've talked a lot about how YouTube has every genre under the sun. And so in the same way that, you might have a docs company that specialise in something that's investigative or something like that, you can do that on both YouTube and TV. Sport, you can do drama, whatever it is. I don't need to list all the genres. But I think that's on us, basically. So what I would advise freelancers is don't be afraid. Look at what you can bring to the party when it comes to working across all medias. And then we will catch up as production companies, and you'll be able to come and work for us on multiple types of projects. And it won't matter that it's not either YouTube or TV. There are transferable skills across both.
And George, maybe advice for sort of baby sort of initial steps?
Yeah, I think you said, is it something that everybody should do? And I think if you're making any form of content, whether that be in a more traditional format or if it is, whatever it is, there's always going to be a space to make something on YouTube. I think it's maybe quite daunting to think that if everybody does that, is it going to become like a diluted space, or what happens there? But I think it's already very diluted, but everybody finds what they're looking for. The algorithm knows from what you've watched in the past what would suit you, and if you just sort of trust the process and post good content, focusing on making sure the thumbnail and title would make the audience that you're targeting at click on it, eventually that will happen. And I don't think it's ever going to get to a point where it's too diluted, because the more people are posting, the more viewers are going to go to that platform to click on them. And it's not exactly like you click on one video, go, okay, that's my time on YouTube done for the day. You then move on to the next one. YouTube literally cues a video afterwards to say, okay, watch this one now. So yeah,
I think that's a good time, a good place to leave it. If the content is good enough, then there's a niche out there for everyone. So thank you very much indeed. Sorry we didn't get through to all your questions, but I don't know if the guys will be sticking around for a little bit afterwards, so you can grab them if you wanted to ask them anything specific. And just to say, this is the first in a series of, I think it's 4 RTS digital sessions. There's one on the 7th of May, where Jasmine Dawson from the BBC and Alex Morris from 4 Studios, and there's one on the 14th of May with Dominic Burns from TikTok. To the lady from Mercury, I don't know if they're all taking place here, but it's all available on the RTS website, so have a look. And yes, thank you very much indeed for coming.